ancient civilizations, and particularly concerning ancient Egypt. You know, the ancient Egyptians devoted their best minds for more than 3,000 years to the consideration of one mystery only, and that is the mystery of what happens to us when we die.
That's right.
It's precisely the issue that our society today ignores entirely and pretends does not exist. We are such amateurs in the exploration of these mysteries by comparison with the ancient Egyptians and by comparison with any practicing shaman in the Amazon today. Now, if you go into the ancient Egyptian sacred texts, for example, the famous books of the dead,
yes,
or the pyramid texts, or the so-called coffin texts, so-called because they were written inside coffins in which the dead were mummified, you will find a complete map of the afterlife realm. And actually, I have a chapter on ancient Egypt in my book, Supernatural, and on their ideas about the afterlife realm. And I'm certain that the ancient Egyptian priests used altered states of consciousness, deliberately induced them, in order to map out and in a thoroughly systematic manner explore and explain what happens to us after we die. It's very interesting that they indicate that we make a journey after our death, that when the material body dies or the soul leaves the body, it then undertakes a journey through a strange parallel universe that the ancient Egyptians called the Duat, might be roughly translated as the underworld or the netherworld or the afterworld. And in this journey, we are confronted with the consequences of everything that we have done and failed to do in this material life.
That's terrifying.
Extremely terrifying. You see, those scientists who say that we have afterlife beliefs simply to comfort ourselves and that, of course, it's all nonsense, really have no idea what they're talking about. If you go into cultures that really examine the mystery of the afterlife, you'll find that the beliefs are not comforting at all. And that we are tested and weighed up and measured on what we did or did not do with our lives. And every negative action, every cruel thought, every vicious word that we have spoken will come back to us during the afterlife journey in the form of monsters and demons to punish us, to terrify us, to confront us. We have to confront the consequences of our own actions. It was seen as a journey through a strange underworld of corridors and passageways with a series of gates through which one must pass. And at each of those gates one was tested, and eventually one comes into what was called the Hall of Maat. Now, Maat was the goddess of truth and justice. Her symbol was the feather. And there, symbolically, our heart is weighed in the scales against the feather of Maat, the feather of truth, the feather of harmony, the feather of cosmic justice. And if our hearts are heavy with sin, and not only with sin, but with the failure to take advantage of the incredible gift that we have been given to be born in a human body, then our hearts will outweigh the feather, and then we must confront a being that the ancient Egyptians called Amit, the eater of the dead, and it becomes possible through the consequences of our own choices and actions that we might face eternal annihilation, never to be reborn, never to come back. But if we've lived right, if we've used this gift of life properly, if we've lived it to the full, if we've experienced and given love, most importantly of all, if we have loved others, and that means giving. Love is not about taking, it's about giving. Then we pass the test in this Hall of Maat, which was also called the Judgment Hall of Osiris, and move on, perhaps into another incarnation in this world, to learn more lessons, to grow, to develop further, to rectify past mistakes, and ultimately the vision of the ancient Egyptians was that we would be reborn as a star in the sky. dust to
So
crystal
there
light.
is a kind of a parallel to what we traditionally think of as heaven and hell. Yes.
There's no doubt that these ideas of heaven and hell that are encountered in Christianity and Islam, for example, have their origins in the ancient Egyptian way of thinking. It's just that the ancient Egyptian approach to it was so much more sophisticated, and I would suggest based on direct experiences undergone by the priests of ancient Egypt in altered states of consciousness, rather than simply in a body of lore passed down without experience from generation to generation, which is what we have today.
And reincarnation.
And reincarnation. Reincarnation is a very strong, systematic part of the ancient Egyptian view. Of course, it's a systematic, very strong part of the ancient religions of India as well, that we come back into physical incarnation again and again and again. And why do we come back? We come back because life is a school, just as I said earlier, that ayahuasca in the Amazon is a school to teach us. And that if we don't learn the lessons it has to teach, the next time we drink ayahuasca, it will confront us with those lessons again. So also with the broader picture of life. We come back into this life in order to learn those lessons. And only when we've learned them and mastered them and done right and thought right and lived our lives to the full, without harming others, without adding to the stock of misery in the world, only then do we move on to the next level.
And the traditional concept of God?
The traditional concept of God, I think, and again I'm drawing on my own experiences in altered states of consciousness here rather than on the teachings of any church. I think that the traditional concept of God is largely a human invention. I think it's something that we created. We projected our own idea of how society should be ruled over by a single, all-powerful, omnipotent individual, and we projected that out into the supernatural realm. But I do not think that that's actually how it is. I think it's much more complicated than that. I think there are enormous numbers of beings and entities and intelligences out there, some deeply concerned with the human race, some loving and caring for and nurturing the human race, but some also that are antagonistic.
All right, listen, Graham.
Listen,
Graham, I've got to go to the phones. A million people want to talk to you, so let's keep it short, everybody, if we can. And here it comes, Graham. I think it's Bob in Washington, Pennsylvania. You're on the air with Graham Hancock.
Thank you, Mr. Bell, for doing the show, Mr. Hancock. I just wanted to say that I've experienced with psilocybin mushrooms, and the commonality, Mr. Bell, he is absolutely correct. I have met the Earth Goddess, was what I had called it, several times, and I just wanted to thank you very much for doing the show and keep up the good work.
Thank you for that comment. It's much appreciated and helps to add to our knowledge and understanding of these mysteries.
It does, and it seems to me that the commonality screams out for science, and science just walks away from this one, apparently.
Walks away from it again and again and again because it confronts and affronts the basic principles of science, which are that everything can be explained in simplistic, materialistic, and mechanical terms. That way, science can continue to control our lives if everything is material, but the moment that consciousness comes to the issue and that there is a supernatural realm surrounding us, then science must become more humble and must learn from the very people it despises, such as the shamans of tribal and hunter-gatherer societies.
Okay. Kurt in Two Harbors, Minnesota. You're on with Graham Hancock. Hi.
Hi, thanks for taking my call, Art.
Sure.
I would like to ask Mr. Hancock, why exactly is absinthe criminalized in the United States, yet it's freely available for purchase over in other countries?
Well, I mean, this is true not only of absinthe, the drink, which does have undoubtedly mind-altering qualities, but it's true of many other substances as well. I've been talking about ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is totally legal, and indeed its use is protected under laws of religious freedom throughout Peru and Brazil and Ecuador and other countries of South America surrounding the Amazon basin, whereas in the United States and Britain it's completely illegal, and DMT is completely illegal, and one is not allowed to to consume these substances. There's a lot of inconsistencies between the ways that different countries come to conclusions about what is legal and what is not. My own view, controversial though it may be, is that governments have no right to rule and tell us what we may or may not put inside our own bodies as adults. We alone are responsible for that. As long as we do not get into